Harley's leadership has made bold moves before, but this time feels different. A new bike, a new engine, a promise to take back the road from every rival brand out there. Inside Milwaukee, the talk is all innovation. Lighter frame, liquid cooling, more tech than ever. But on the outside, riders are asking the real question: can you chase the future without losing the rumble that built your name? We've gone through the leaks, the numbers, and the stories from the shop floor to see if this new machine is Harley's comeback, or its most expensive mistake yet. Stay with me till the end, because the truth behind this gamble could decide what kind of Harley you'll be able to buy or afford next. The proclamation, the V-Rod Reborn. The lights dimmed, the crowd hushed, and for a heartbeat, Harley-Davidson stood still. Then, the CEO stepped forward, eyes locked on the cameras, and dropped a line that would echo through the industry. I am releasing my new motorcycle that will destroy all competition. Behind him, a massive black cloth covered a machine rumored to be the most advanced Harley ever built. When it dropped, the crowd gasped. There it was, the V-Rod Reborn, low, wide, and furious. It wasn't a throwback, it was a declaration, a new beast forged from old fire. The Reborn looked like no Harley before it. Liquid-cooled Rev Max 1500 V-twin, lightweight trellis frame, a stance so aggressive it looked ready to sprint off the stage. The rear tire was monstrous, the tank narrow and sculpted, the pipes bent like coiled muscle. The engine snarled to life. Not a rumble, but a refined growl that sounded less like nostalgia and more like challenge. This, the CEO said, resting his hand on the tank, is Harley's future. The fastest, hardest-hitting American motorcycle ever built. He wasn't introducing a model. He was waging war. And for the first time in years, every rider in the room leaned forward. But power alone can't hide pressure, and Harley's came from years of bruises. The wound beneath the chrome. Harley had been bleeding for years, dealerships closed, revenues slipped. The brand's once loyal riders aged, while younger buyers drifted toward cheaper, faster imports. The boardroom called it market fatigue. Riders called it losing the soul. When the CEO took over, he didn't promise comfort. He promised disruption. The V-Rod Reborn was his weapon, the proof that Harley could claw back relevance. He called it a phoenix built from steel and pride. But behind the scenes, executives whispered the truth. This wasn't just a launch, it was a lifeline. He pushed engineers beyond their limits. Meetings ran until midnight, budgets ballooned, and the old guard muttered that Harley was chasing ghosts. But the CEO saw it differently. You don't save a legend by worshipping it, he said. You save it by rewriting it. He knew riders wanted more than chrome and nostalgia. They wanted proof Harley could still lead, not follow. So he gambled everything, legacy, loyalty, and his own reputation, on one roaring statement. The V-Rod Reborn wasn't built to please purists. It was built to make Harley feared again. And the man who built it believed he'd found Harley's lost heartbeat. If you've made it this far, you already know this story isn't just about bikes. It's about what's left of American grit. Hit like, subscribe, and share your take below so real riders' voices steer this conversation forward. The garage reaction. Across the country, the reaction wasn't measured in press claps or investor charts. It echoed through garages, truck stops, and backyard workshops, where the real pulse of motorcycling still lives. In one corner, a retired mechanic polished his old Road King, shaking his head at the news. "Destroy all competition?" he muttered. "They said that before the live wire, too." Another rider, younger and hopeful, leaned in and replied, "Maybe this time they mean it." The debates raged like open throttles. For every rider who saw a rebirth, another saw betrayal. Some praised Harley for finally waking up to performance culture, saying the V-Rod Reborn could go toe-to-toe with European and Japanese powerhouses. Others argued the company was chasing a dream that didn't belong to it. "Harley doesn't need to beat Ducati," one rider said in a bar near Daytona. "It just needs to be Harley." In the online forums, the conversations got louder. Writers traded grainy, leaked photos, analyzing frame geometry and exhaust layouts like forensic scientists. Some were captivated by the angular design. Others mourned the loss of the old chrome curves. It was clear the V-Rod Reborn wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a mirror reflecting everything Harley's fan base had become: divided, passionate, and deeply protective of its past. Still, there was hope in the air. Every oil-stained bench, every old toolbox seemed to hum with the same unspoken thought. Maybe, just maybe, Harley still had one more miracle left in it. But faith comes with a price, and the company had spent most of its reserves already. To understand the promise, we need to see what's hiding behind those factory doors. Check the description for all the riding gear and accessories I personally trust on every ride. Inside the vault, deep in the Milwaukee headquarters, behind security glass and electronic keypads, the V-Rod Reborn took shape. The project's code name, Phoenix, said it all. Engineers worked under strict non-disclosure, phones banned, windows covered. The prototype stood under a black tarp in the corner of a sealed bay, a secret that hummed with restrained fury. The new V-Rod wasn't just an updated version. It was a complete reinvention. Built around the liquid-cooled RevMax 1500 engine, it promised raw performance Harley had never dared to pursue before. Lighter frame, tighter stance, and electronics tuned for precision instead of pomp. Insiders whispered about adaptive suspension and torque, figures that rivaled European street fighters. Yet, as rumors leaked, one theme kept resurfacing. This bike was dangerous for more than one reason. For Harley's old guard, it was a cultural risk. Strip too much soul, and the machine becomes a statistic. Add too much nostalgia, and it becomes another rerun. Balancing both was like riding on oil in the rain. And the CEO knew it. He wasn't just designing a motorcycle, he was defining Harley's future identity. The project consumed resources, attention, and even friendships inside the company. Engineers argued about the sound profile, debating how to preserve that visceral heartbeat while pushing modern limits. When the prototype finally roared to life, it didn't sound like a Harley. But it didn't sound like anything else either. It was something new, something uncertain. The kind of noise that makes men lean forward and listen harder. The CEO stood there, eyes locked on the machine, knowing he was staring at both his biggest triumph and his biggest gamble. Months later, leaked spec sheets would ignite the forums and spark a war of numbers. The leaked specs. It started as a whisper on an enthusiast forum, the kind of rumor that usually dies after a few comments. But this one caught fire. A supposed internal document leaked from Milwaukee, engine figures, chassis notes, and prototype data that read more like a dare than a spec sheet. The numbers didn't sound real. A liquid-cooled RevMax V-twin producing over 150 horsepower, a curb weight under 600 pounds, and a torque curve that peaked faster than anything Harley had ever built. For the loyal fans who still worshipped the sound of a cammed-out Evo or a Milwaukee 8, those numbers didn't feel like Harley. They felt like something out of Europe, a performance brand chasing lap times instead of legacies. Yet, to a new wave of riders, the idea of a V-Rod reborn through the RevMax engine platform was intoxicating. Finally, they said, a Harley that could run with Ducati or Triumph without sacrificing the badge on the tank. Some said the leaked specs were no accident, a calculated tease to test the crowd. It worked. Forums exploded, dealers got calls, and engineers grinned, sensing either rebirth or ruin. But old mechanics frowned. Lightweight alloys, ride-by-wire, too much tech. Power was undeniable, but so was the question. In chasing progress, was Harley still Harley? But engineering dreams mean nothing without dollars and deadlines. The price of reinvention. As the prototypes rolled through testing bays, another number began to haunt Harley's leadership: cost. The research and development budget, already inflated by the Livewire project, started to spiral again. Exotic materials like carbon-infused frames and custom electronics didn't come cheap. Every new improvement added another zero to the bottom line. Executives watched spreadsheets bleed red while the CEO stood by his vision. "We can't build yesterday's bike," he said, "and expect tomorrow's respect." But on the factory floor, the tone was different. Workers who had built Harleys their entire lives whispered about the expenses eating away at the company's margins. The V-Rod Reborn wasn't just a motorcycle, it was an experiment, one with the potential to crush small-town dealerships if it failed. Dealers across the country began voicing their concerns. A few brave owners called the company directly. "It better sell," one dealer said, "or it'll sink us." They remembered the early days of the Livewire, months of unsold units sitting under dust covers while interest payments mounted. If the V-Rod Reborn ended up priced like an imported superbike, it would alienate the very crowd Harley needed most: working men who bought bikes with savings, not loans. In Harley's boardroom, tempers flared. Some saw the V-Rod Reborn as survival. Others called it suicide by innovation. Rising costs, stubborn suppliers, and nervous investors tightened the noose. Yet, the CEO stayed calm. "Progress costs more than comfort," he said. Harley wasn't protecting its past anymore. It was gambling its credibility on owning the future. That warning didn't just echo in dealerships. It reached Harley's rivals too. Rivals gear up. No one in the motorcycle world ignores Harley-Davidson, even when pretending to. The announcement of the V-Rod Reborn jolted every major manufacturer into motion. Indian accelerated work on its next Challenger variant. Engineers leaked that an RR model was now being tested with a stronger frame and higher output engine. Triumph teased a refreshed rocket, boasting more torque and better handling. Honda, never one to stay quiet for long, hinted at a performance-focused Goldwing R, a blend of grand touring luxury and unexpected aggression. Harley's boldness didn't scare them, it inspired them. Behind closed doors, industry veterans admitted something unusual. Harley was finally acting like a challenger again, not a legacy brand on life support. But the confidence was double-edged. If the V-Rod Reborn succeeded, it would reshape the competitive landscape. If it failed, it would confirm every critic's suspicion that Harley no longer knew its own DNA. Rivals smiled publicly, but plotted privately. Indian pushed aggressive financing, Triumph cut prices, and BMW leaned on authenticity over tech. Beneath the civility, Harley's "destroy all competition" boast had lit a fuse. The industry entered a silent arms race, each brand sharpening its edge. For the first time in decades, Harley wasn't leading the pack. It was racing to survive the chase it started. Inside Harley, though, not everyone agreed on what destroy really meant. The boardroom rift. Behind the closed doors of Harley's headquarters, the fight turned internal. The CEO wanted a clean break from the past, a high-performance future that would redefine what an American motorcycle could be. But many inside the company weren't convinced. The old guard engineers, some of whom had been there since the Evo era, saw the V-Rod Reborn as a betrayal of Harley's spirit. "If it doesn't sound like a Harley," one veteran said during a design meeting, "then it isn't one." The younger designers countered that sound alone wouldn't save them. They pointed to market data showing a steep decline in under 40 buyers and increasing demand for power and tech. "If we keep building for yesterday," one analyst said, "we'll sell nostalgia until we run out of people who remember it." The clash became more than professional. It became personal. Design meetings turned into battles: chrome versus LED, analog versus digital. Delays mounted, costs soared, and whispers spread of two Harleys at war: the Rebel and the Reformer. When the first V-Rod Reborn prototypes finally hit the track, the company's fate balanced on a knife edge. It wasn't just a bike anymore, it was Harley's identity test. That internal clash spilled into the real world, where dealers and riders felt the impact first. Dealers on the line. In small towns across America, Harley dealerships sit under flickering neon lights, holding their breath. The new V-Rod Reborn posters hang proudly on the showroom walls, but behind those glossy images sits an uneasy truth. Inventory from the last 2 years still clutters the floor. Sport glides, heritage classics, and even a few live wires gathering dust. Yet, corporate headquarters has a new message for dealers. Believe in the Reborn. For the independent owners who've survived decades of economic swings, that faith doesn't come cheap. Some have mortgaged their homes to keep their doors open. Others are cutting staff, turning once bustling showrooms into skeleton crews. The promise is that the V-Rod Reborn will reignite interest and bring back younger buyers. But the risk is clear. If this bike fails, these dealerships won't just lose profits. They'll lose everything. In Missouri, a veteran dealer runs his hand over a faded Softail. Sold Harleys since 1978, he sighs. This one feels like rolling dice on my own grave. Corporate calls the V-Rod Reborn the future, but dealers know better. Riders don't just buy machines, they buy themselves. And lately, that feels priced out of reach. And in biker circles, the talk turned from sales to soul. The rider divide. No launch in modern Harley history has split the community like the V-Rod Reborn. In the bars, garages, and message boards where riders still speak their minds, the divide is sharp enough to cut chrome. On one side are the revivalists, the ones who see the new V-Rod as a long overdue shot of adrenaline. They talk about power-to-weight ratios, lean angles, and the need for Harley to stay competitive. It's about time, one said at a bike night in Phoenix. For once, we've got a Harley that can smoke a Ducati at the light. On the other side sit the loyalists, men and women who've ridden through decades of American asphalt, with Harleys that shook, roared, and rattled their bones. To them, the Reborn isn't progress, it's betrayal. A Harley isn't supposed to whisper, one old-timer said in a Milwaukee tavern, his voice gravelly from years of smoke and road miles. It's supposed to growl like it means something. Online wars erupted. Hundreds of comments, dyno charts, and arguments flying like sparks. Some swore no spec sheet could measure soul. Others said Harley's soul was simply evolving. No one agreed, but everyone cared again. The V-Rod Reborn reignited pride, anger, and hope alike, proof that passion still burns. But the harder you believe, the harder the crash if it fails. But arguments stopped cold once people saw the rumored price tag. If you still care about the truth behind the badge, stay with us. Subscribe now, because the next report digs even deeper into what Harley and every rival brand does next. Don't miss the moment the road finally turns. The cost of entry. When the leaked MSRP hit the internet, it landed like a gut punch, $42,000, before taxes, before fees, before the inevitable dealer markup. The forums that had been buzzing with curiosity turned quiet, and then furious. "Destroy all competition?" one commenter wrote. "Yeah, if the competition's your wallet." The price wasn't just high, it was historic. It put the V-Rod Reborn in the same bracket as European superbikes and custom cruisers. For Harley's loyal base, blue-collar riders, veterans, and working-class enthusiasts, that number didn't just feel out of reach, it felt like rejection. The younger crowd, already priced out of most new Harleys, saw the price as confirmation that the brand no longer wanted them. "It's like they're building bikes for boardrooms now," one 29-year-old rider posted. Veteran owners felt betrayed, fearing another live wire, an expensive gamble real riders would pay for. Analysts said Harley chased exclusivity, but at a cost beyond profit. On back roads and at bike nights, talk turned from specs to survival. "You can't build the American dream," one mechanic said, "if the average American can't afford the key." And for the faithful who rode decades, the question changed. What happened to the roar? Heritage under fire. Launch day came like a thunderstorm over an empty highway, loud, polished, but strangely cold. The live stream opened with cinematic drone shots, futuristic music, and slick narration about innovation and rebirth. The V-Rod Reborn looked flawless. Every curve sculpted, every detail engineered. But for many longtime riders, something was missing the moment the engine started. There was no rumble, no heartbeat, no mechanical soul. The sound, tuned through advanced baffling, was smooth, efficient, and sterile. The bike moved like a predator, but sounded like a whisper. The Harley faithful watched in silence, the air thick with disbelief. This wasn't the machine that roared through the Sturgis Rally or thundered down Route 66. It was a machine for a different world, a different audience. Online reactions were harsh. "Beautiful," one wrote, "but not one of us." Some called the V-Rod Reborn Harley's eulogy. Others argued evolution was survival. Yet evolution without emotion felt like extinction. In a Tennessee bar, a veteran rider muttered, "Fast, but freedom ain't supposed to be quiet." The silence said it all. Harley had destroyed competition, but maybe crippled the very legacy that built it. The silence spread far beyond Harley. The whole industry felt the shockwave. Industry chain reaction. When Harley-Davidson announced the V-Rod Reborn, the shock didn't stop at Milwaukee. It rippled through factories, design studios, and boardrooms across the motorcycle world. For years, Harley had been seen as slow to adapt, a brand built on nostalgia rather than innovation. But suddenly, the company everyone had counted out became the center of gravity again. The V-Rod Reborn wasn't just another release. It was a gauntlet thrown across the entire industry. Manufacturers were forced to pick sides. Some doubled down on heritage, choosing authenticity over technology. Indian emphasized craftsmanship and the familiar rumble of American iron, promoting its bikes as the true heirs to the road. Triumph leaned into its classic British identity, expanding its Bonneville line with retro accuracy. Others went the opposite route. Ducati, KTM, and BMW leaned harder into clean tech futurism, promising that emotion could coexist with innovation if riders were brave enough to embrace it. The V-Rod Reborn became the new benchmark for progress. Journalists compared it to Japanese sport bikes and Italian exotics. Riders weighed its soul against Harley's past. Even rivals quietly shifted plans. Harley was back in headlines, but opinions split. Evolution or warning? The Reborn reignited the industry, proving risk could spark revival, yet also threaten the fragile identity that once made Harley untouchable. But the real impact wasn't just corporate. It was deeply American. The American factory dilemma. Inside Harley's US plants, the mood was far from celebratory. The new RevMax 1500 engine required precision tooling and new assembly lines. Parts once cast and welded by hand were now shaped by automated systems and imported materials. Skilled workers who had built bikes for decades suddenly found themselves training machines that would one day replace them. The slogan, "Made in America," started to sound like a question rather than a promise. Unions pushed back. They argued that Harley's strength had always been its workers, the men and women who turned raw steel into roaring machines. Every imported bolt or outsourced subframe chipped away at that legacy. "If it's not built here," one worker said, "it's not Harley." But economics didn't care about pride. The company was facing rising costs, shrinking margins, and shareholders demanding modern efficiency. For executives, automation wasn't betrayal, it was survival. Retooling for the V-Rod Reborn brought layoffs in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Missouri, closing small suppliers and hurting local diners and motels. The bike became a paradox, American in name, foreign in foundation. The CEO defended it, but for those raised on factory floors, pride couldn't be automated. Once that spirit's gone, rebuilding it is nearly impossible. And across the ocean, global markets started whispering their own verdict: global shockwaves. Overseas, the reaction to the V-Rod Reborn was mixed but loud. European riders admired its engineering, though they balked at its price. Asian markets, long resistant to Harley's heavier lineup, showed brief curiosity before turning away again. Import costs were rising, tariffs tightening, and Harley's reputation as a premium brand pushed the Reborn into a luxury niche few could afford. In Germany and France, dealers complained that the bike's retail price eclipsed high-end Ducatis. In India, where Harley had once promised to make motorcycling accessible to a growing middle class, the Reborn's cost was laughably unattainable. In Japan, reviewers called it a masterpiece for millionaires. The irony was painful. For a company born from rebellion and working-class grit, Harley was starting to look like the establishment it once defied. Other brands seized Harley's stumble. Triumph sold real rider classics, Royal Enfield revived simplicity, and even Honda felt more American in spirit. Analysts praised Harley's engineering, but mourned its lost identity. The V-Rod Reborn sold modestly to elites, a trophy more than a tool. Once a symbol of rebellion, Harley had gone global, and in the process drifted dangerously far from the soul that made it matter. And that left riders back home asking what the brand truly stood for now. The meaning of power. As the noise around the launch faded, something deeper began to settle. The V-Rod Reborn was no longer just a motorcycle, it had become a mirror. Every debate about its design, price, and purpose reflected a larger truth about Harley-Davidson itself. For more than a century, the brand had represented freedom, rebellion, and the rough poetry of the open road. But the Reborn forced everyone, from the boardroom to the back roads, to ask what those words still meant in a world that was changing faster than the rumble of an engine could keep up. For some, the answer was simple: adapt or die. The V-Rod Reborn, with its hybrid performance and clean design, was proof that Harley could evolve without apology. But for others, the mechanics, the veterans, the long-haul wanderers, the answer cut deeper. Power wasn't measured in horsepower or torque. It was measured in trust. It was in the handshake between a rider and a dealer. The shared knowing nod at a gas station, the sound of pistons that reminded you why you fell in love with the road in the first place. The CEO promised a bike that would destroy all competition. And in a way, he did, just not how anyone expected. The V-Rod Reborn exposed what the industry lost chasing progress: power without purpose, speed without soul. Yet somewhere, an old road king still rumbles, reminding Harley what real power sounds like: trust, not torque. At the end of the day, this isn't about numbers or horsepower, it's about trust. The faith between a rider and the machine that's carried them across 1,000 miles of open road. Harley says this new era is about power, but maybe what we really need is honesty. So, I want to hear from you. Is this evolution or extinction? Let me know down in the comments. Smash that, like if you've ever turned a wrench on a Harley, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into where our industry's really headed.